Hello viewers, welcome to yet another edition of your popular program, The Environment Today. On this episode I have as our guest on this edition the Director General of the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, Mr. Idris O. Musa. We shall be discussing the issues around oil spill in the Niger Delta, which is a major challenge for our country today. So I have the pleasure to welcome Mr. Musa.
Thank you very much.
Yes, let's look at the two core areas of your of your responsibility as the DG of this agency. There is the oil spill detection, and there is the response. Which one of the two do you find more challenging?
The two are challenging. To put the facts straight, the two are challenging. The detection aspect is challenging because we have to put a lot of efforts on our part to make sure that we synchronize activities with that of the oil companies by way of ensuring that their assets, the integrity of their assets, that is the pipelines, the flow lines, the trunk lines, the export lines are in good condition. And also ensure that even where there are issues, they are fixed on time. That is working towards preventing a spill. However, the other aspect of our mandate, the response, when it happens, what do? We ensure that they respond rapidly. And for them to be able to respond rapidly, they have to have what we call SP contingency plan, which they can bring to bear whenever a spill happens, respond to it timely, get the necessary materials, have their various contacts and equipment that they will use. And to make the response rapid, many of the oil companies, especially the major ones, will have what we call call-off contracts with some contractors who they just beckon on rather than having to go the whole hog or contracting process, which can delay. And of course, the window of opportunity of responding to oil spill is very narrow.
Okay.
So the response has to be quick, and such people are called in to come and respond immediately. And these are things that we always see how we can balance. But our own vision actually is to have a zero tolerance for oil spill. But then you cannot, just like some people will say, you cannot have the omelette without breaking the egg.
Yes.
There will always be spills, but whenever there are spills, such spills should be responded to immediately.
Okay. Record shows Nigeria has recorded about 5,000 incidents of oil spill between 2015, possibly till date. All these incidents, were they discovered by you, by your agency, or are there stakeholders who also brief you about the oil spill?
The environment is very wide.
Yes.
We detect some, draw the attention of the oil companies to it.
Okay.
The host communities detect quite a lot, draw the attention of the host community, of the oil companies to it. The oil companies themselves, through their surveillance agents, discover some. So those are the ways of actually knowing whether there's a spill or not. And once the notification is given, the oil companies know that by law, they must report an oil spill incident within 24 hours. Okay. Failure to do so has some penalties. So nobody really wants to go into that, such penalties willfully. So what they do immediately is they report. And the law is a bit kind in that respect.
Okay.
You report such oil spills to the nearest zonal office to your operation area. Okay. And that is why on our own part to make life easy for them and for us too, as regulators. We established offices in virtually all the oil-producing states. We have office in Lagos because the bulk of the import of petroleum products pass through Lagos. We have there, and recently, the Folawiyo, they feed there. But so far it is good. We have not had incidents of spills from that side. But we have spills also along the corridors of Lagos.
Yeah.
The pipelines moving from Atlas Cove to Mosini, a number of times it's been interrupted in areas like Jebu, Aripo, and so on and so forth. Then we have office in Akure, which mans that part of the country, because we have some upstream activities in the nearshore and offshore Ondo State. Like the FPSO that exploded some time back, February 2, 2022. It was the Akure Zonal Office of our agency that managed that and did it very well. We have in Warri, because Warri is under oil hub. We have office in Port Harcourt. We have office in Yenagua. We have office in Uyo to manage Eket area where Mobile is. And then we have now just bringing up another one in Calabar. Hitherto, we used to cover Calabar area from Uyo of the proximity, but we secured accommodation at the Federal Secretariat in Calabar, so we are moving some staff there to reduce the response time, travel time. Okay. So that's what we have. And of course, we have office in Lokoja, we have in Ilorin, but we have depots there. Okay. Depots, major depots, and we also have in Kaduna. Of course, Kaduna has a refinery, and a lot of both crude and the petroleum products move in and out of Kaduna. We have another office in Jos. There's a depot there. We have office in Gombe. Gombe has a depot, but preparatory to the oil production in the Bauchi area, Bauchi-Gombe area, we are fully on ground there to also respond. Okay. To monitor the activities of the operators in those areas.
Okay, that's good. A major issue around the oil spill detection and response in the various communities has to do with accepting liability for the incident. On one hand, the communities usually allege that most of the oil spillage is caused by either equipment failure, while on the government side, it's alleged that it's sabotage. From your experience, how will you allocate that liability in terms of the number of incidents? If you're talking of 5,000,
yes, actually, when we talk of 5,000, let me just put it this way: the 5,000 spill incidents that we have over that period that you mentioned, I can tell you, and this is not guesswork, the records are there. 70 to 75% of such were countable, were due to sabotage, vandalism, oil theft. We put artisanal refining under oil theft because you steal the oil to go and do the refining or the cooking that they do. 75%, no doubt about that. The records are there to show. If you break it down to state by state, some states even have as high as 90%. But on the aggregate, it's about 75%. That 5,000 that you see, the records are there. And you see, the host communities have been in the knowledge of oil production for quite some time. Yes, they may not have the vast majority of the people there may not be oil explorers or producers, but they see happiness around them. Some of them, since Nostra came on board in 2006, or let me say, since Federal Ministry of Environment came on board in 1999, a lot of awareness has come to host communities. So they know and they realize that there are laws governing oil production and distribution through pipelines in Nigeria. And by way of what had happened in the past, and by the Pipelines Act, Petroleum Pipelines Act, if any oil spill occurs as a result of tampering with the pipeline, vandalizing it in any form, or installing valve on it to steal crude, and there's any spill, there will be clean up by the oil company that is in that area, but there will be no compensation.
Yeah.
That is that fact is well known by the communities, host communities. On the other hand, where the spill is a result of pipeline rupture, corrosion, human error as a result of maintenance, or in the course of maintenance, there is what we call pigging when you clean the pipeline.
Okay.
And in the course of that exercise, pressurizing and then flushing out the pipelines, the weak points along the pipeline can rupture.
Okay.
And then there will be spill, equipment failure. Of course, where there is equipment failure, you clean up, you also compensate whatever assets is impacted. And of course, that is a win for the host communities, whose assets anyway are impacted.
Okay.
That fish pond, fishing nets, fishing gear, and then farmlands adjacent to the pipelines right of way. So because of this, when there is a spill incident, there is a standard practice. We organize what we call joint investigation visits. And that is by way of being transparent, so that nobody feels shortchanged. And that we do by having the oil company that's responsible as a stakeholder, the regulatory agencies, Nostra, and the the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, as it is now, former DPR, the state government, the host communities. We are there to go and check. Well, you say, for us in Nostra, how much of the oil that spills is into the environment? Because the environment has to be protected. That is for us in Nostra. That is our role there.
Okay.
For the former DPR, which is now NUPRC, Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, of course, you are there for two purposes: technical, commercial.
Okay.
You need to know, under commercial, how much of the oil you are expecting to go into exports has now spilled into the environment. You need to know, so that you know how much revenue you are expecting. That's their own side. But the environment side is for us. So we have this. And the communities know. Usually it is like what I would call cat and mouse game. Why the oil companies will be looking forward to having the verdict to be vandalism or sabotage, such that they only clean up, no compensation. The host communities are also looking at the other side of equipment failure, where there will be cleanup and compensation.
And they always allege
Of
that
course,
in
there's
most cases, the regulator, supports the oil companies.
The regulator will not support oil companies at all, because one, we are for the two of them. We are unbiased umpires. One, the federal government, which includes the host communities too, are stakeholders in the oil companies because of the equity holdings.
Okay.
The oil companies themselves are also, let me say, our guests, investors in Nigeria. So if there is any spill, if it is as a result of equipment failure, we will say it, they will see it. And we do not go to any joint investigation visit without capturing that particular incident with coordinates, so that you can see. The people say pictures don't lie. The way you see it is the way the capturing will be. So we see a number of times, when you see a hacksaw cut on the pipeline, you know that is vandalism. There is no need to argue on that. The contention is not between the government and the host communities. The contention is always between the host communities and the oil companies. We are the umpires. And when we say it is equipment failure, there are evidence to show that it is equipment failure. When we say it is vandalism, third-party interference, there are also evidence to show. That is distinction.
Just as you said, by law, the oil companies are supposed to pay compensation if the oil spill is due to equipment failure. But from experience, it seems the issue of payment of compensation are always degenerate into litigation. Maybe if you cite the example of the Ogoni incident of the 1970s, it was only resolved at the Supreme Court of Nigeria when the court said the oil company should pay. Why should it take 30 years for a community to get compensation, for instance?
Well, the issue of compensation is very dicey. Very dicey in the sense that there must be clear-cut evidence to show that this is equipment failure. There must be clear-cut evidence to show that this is vandalism. You know, environment came into being in 1999, Federal Ministry of Environment. Of course, there had been FEPA before then. FEPA came to be in 1988 after the Akoko toxic incident. But before then, the Petroleum Inspectorate Division of NNPC was the one that was in charge of environmental matters if there was oil spill. Let me just inform you that there was only recovery in those days. Recovery and little cleanup, if any. The whole thing was left to natural attenuation. And but since environment came to be from FEPA to Federal Ministry of Environment to Nostra, as it is now, there has been a drastic change in the ways of doing things. The narratives changed when this happened. There hadn't been such under us since we came to be. The case we were talking about 30 years ago, Federal Ministry of Environment was not in place. The FEPA itself was new, as at that time, was still new, relatively young, and there was no Nostra at that time. In our case, one clear case in Ogoni, for instance, Bodo, there was a spill there in 2008, another one 2009. When the two incidents happened, it belonged to, of course, one of the oil companies, the major oil companies there. When we did the joint investigation visit, it showed clearly that it was equipment failure. So we were in charge. We showed that it was equipment failure. The company, just like communities do, we disagree. The company disagreed to say that it was not equipment failure, it was this and that. But we already made our own verdict that this is equipment failure. The JIV forms were there, the photographs were there, and by the time the community took this matter to a foreign court, the matter was not taken to full conclusion before the oil company in question decided to subpoena, and then they went on what I would call out-of-court settlement, and then they paid compensation. Again, the question is, if you would do this, why haven't you done it long before now? Because we already gave it. That's why I said, in our own case, it wasn't what used to be is no more what used to be here.
Okay, what's the level of cooperation between Nostra and the state governments in some of the oil communities? Citing the case of the Bayelsa oil spill, recent one, that has pitched Nostra against the state government.
Well, I wouldn't say it didn't pitch the Nostra against the state government. I think the committee set up by the government of Bayelsa State disagreed with what the verdict was. The verdict was not a verdict of Nostra alone. It was a joint investigation visit. I have told you those who are stakeholders there, the communities, the state government, the oil company, Nostra, NUPRC. When we looked at it, we discovered that this is not an equipment failure, it's vandalism. And of course, they said no, because prior to even the JIV, they had gone to conclusion to say it was equipment failure. So it is about expectations not being met. As to the collaboration with state governments, since the National Council on Environment meeting in Calabar in 2005, it had been resolved that when any such things like investigation, anything on the environment is going on, the federal should co-opt the state government in whatever we are doing. And we have, since that time, there is no JIV we do without taking the state government, Ministry of Environment or whatever, some call their own Ministry of Mineral Resources, so on and so forth, but principally it's about the environment. We take them along. That has been the practice.
Your response mandate, requires Nostra to have a lot of equipment to be able to clean, the oil spill. People often allege, in the public domain, that you rely on the oil companies for technical support, for logistics. Is that true, or how?
Let me say it is not true. Let's put it, because if you ask for a yes or no answer, I will say no. Not true because, one, for the way things are today in Nigeria, where every Tom, Dick and Harry goes to tamper with pipelines. Pipelines in Nigeria today are not what anybody can just go into. If you must go there, you must let the owners of that asset know. So by that, you have to go together. Even the state government will go together. Even the communities will go together. Yeah, it's like I'm coming to your house. I will just pop into your house and then without notifying you that we are coming. And then if a vehicle, two vehicles can convey people to a place, why put quite a number of vehicles there? People do say, if they carry you in your car, you are compromised. How does that happen?
So there's no way to get the Nostra office?
No, not at all. But I cannot rule out some miscreants, but that will not be ruled out. But in, let me say, in virtually 90 to 95%, it is not possible. It's not possible. One, we have our own vehicles. Each of the zonal field officers I mentioned have their own vehicles that we use to go to the field. We have our own equipment to use. And then we also have our own kits to use. So, but we have to go with the owners of the assets. We can't go behind them. The owners of the assets have security men, operatives that are guarding it. How does the security operatives know that this is the genuine Nostra that is coming if the owners of the assets are not there? If we say, if you put on your uniform, haven't we seen where miscreants put on military uniform, police uniform, to camouflage as if they are genuine people? That's impersonating. So you don't just go into any oil field assets without notifying those who own it. That's just what it is, and they must understand that.
Okay, what is Nostra doing to earn the confidence of the communities, the host communities, so that they can trust government when government says this oil spill is due to equipment failure or is due to sabotage?
There is no day that you don't see communities through their attorneys saying, give us freedom of information, give us this JIB, give us that one, give us that one. They have that trust. The only period when we have disagreement is when the resolution is not in their favor. Of course, they can't be happy. That is the only one. Other than that, they know where to report to. Even when they want to petition to National Assembly, they don't petition against any other person. They put Nostra for whatever reason. And they know that Nostra is the one they can always take their cases to. We have good relationship with those communities. Even there is one that is being done now by Ajib. We even got commendation. Even one petition, even though they are writing a petition about an incident, they still commended Nostra for what it has done so far. So it has always been like that. But where your expectations or their expectations are not met in total, there's always disagreement.
In that case, if there is a trust, then that means the friction even between the host communities and the oil companies, you can play some intervening there.
We do quite a lot. We do quite a lot for we do quite a lot of mediation, and such mediation had been very fruitful, very fruitful in the past and up to now. We will do a lot of that, and it's part of the mandates in our Establishment Act. Is there mediate between the oil spiller and the host communities? We do. Even sometimes when they had cause to petition to the Public Ethics Committee of the National Assembly, either in the Senate or in the House, we are called. In some cases, they ask us to go back and resolve between the host community and the oil companies. We do that.
The few cases of the equipment failure, what have been your suggestion to the oil companies in terms of upgrading their equipment?
I'll give you one typical example. You see where ITO is now, the OMA 29 that ITO is operating now used to be operated by one major oil company. And that oil company had series of spills in the early 2000s up to the late 2000s. So we had the terrible spill sometime in 2006, which spilled about 4,000 barrels thereabouts, and over 3,000 barrels were recovered. That was the last that convinced the oil company that it is high time that pipeline was changed. It now changed that pipeline. It was a 97-kilometer length pipeline called Nembe Creek Trunk Line, NCTL. The parallel pipeline is still there up to now, not decommissioned yet. But because of this incident, it dawned on the company that they had to change it, and they changed it. But again, within the first year of commissioning that pipeline, 97-kilometer pipeline, there were about 56 installations on it, valves. And of course, you see what it means. That is oil theft in a number of segments within a stretch of 97 kilometers. So it's a very bad thing.
Thank you, DG, Mr. Idris O. Musa, for sparing some time with us to discuss about the issues of oil spill and the detection in the Nigeria's Niger Delta. We thank you so much for your time, and we hope that some other time we can come around to hear your views.
Thank you very much.
Viewers, this is how far we'll go on this edition of the Environment Today. I hope you keep a date with us when we come your way next time.